Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hi, friends. Jason here. In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Frank Hurtte, founding partner of River Heights Consulting. Frank has been helping guide distributor sales teams and owners for the past few decades. Like myself, Frank was born into distribution. From the early days of his family automotive parts business to a long career in the electrical supply vertical, he has seen the good, the bad, and definitely the ugly. One of his areas of focus is the notion of fee for service in distribution. He was so passionate about the subject, he wrote a book about it. To call it a book would be a bit of an understatement. It's more of a manifesto, and that is exactly what he called it. The Distributors Fee-Based Services Manifesto. Now, I have to warn you, our conversation went a bit longer than my typical episode. I think you'll figure out why. Enjoy. All right, Frank. Hey, thank you for coming on Distribution Talk. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you.
Hey, thanks, Jason. It's a pleasure. I love chatting with other people in this business.
Well, we did get in this business somehow. So if you wouldn't mind, give me a little history lesson. How did you get involved with distribution? I mean, I got drug into it from child labor laws, but how about you? How did you get involved with distribution?
Oh my gosh, the child labor laws. I'm so damned old. I don't think they applied back in those days. My parents were in a distribution business. It was what they called tires, batteries, and accessories. My father followed the steps of a lot of people. He went to college. He played football in college. Ada Oil Company decided that they wanted to hire football players out of college because they somehow believed that big, tall guys would sell more. And they bought him his first pair of new shoes, and off he went with a hat and everything. And he worked for them for a while and then started his own business. And this is what I discovered. At age 10, if I stayed at home, my mom had work lined up for me from sun up until sundown. There was always some little chore, something. I was never done. And if I went to work with my dad, it was pretty much the same story, except that they had a pop machine and I had the key to it.
Hey, that's a bonus right there. There's a win.
And later on, when I got the key to the candy box, life was really good.
Man, you were living large.
I was. I started off sweeping and painting shelves, Texaco green on everything. It was a thing of beauty. I had it on my hands, on my hair and everything from the beginning of summer to the end of the summer. And that just continued because it was fun. It was good to go there. I liked dealing with people. I liked hanging around with the people that worked for my dad. And little by little, because of just it was a small business and people would be gone, they'd be on break, they'd be sick, they'd be something. And I watched them work and just kind of started migrating my way into more and more types of things. By the time I was 14, I was selling truck tires and batteries and spark plugs to people all over the Midwest. As a matter of fact, there was a period of time when, back in the old days, if you had your gallbladder taken out, it was like a 6 or 7 week ordeal. And one of my dad's salespeople had a bad gallbladder, and he had just bought a factory that was going out of business and bought like these massive amounts of tires of all kinds. Mm-hmm. And our warehouse was overflowing. We had them stacked in an old ice house. If you ever saw an old ice house that was stacked to the ceiling on 2 floors with tires. And so anyway, my parents had somebody that drove me around and we went to gas stations and places to sell those tires. And most of the time people would say, what's this young kid coming in and talking? And they'd start talking to the guy that was driving me and he'd go, no, talk to him. So anyway, that went through college. And I always had this dream that I would go into the family business. But, the Arab embargo for oil, the changes in cars, all that stuff basically took 6 or 7,000 independent distributors across America and squeezed them into about 4 companies. And my dad saw that coming. I went to school to become a computer engineer just because it sounded complicated and it was a good way of impressing the people back in my little hometown. And got a job working for Allen Bradley, which
Yeah,
was a very distributor focused company.
sure.
And I, like off of their training program was assigned 17 distributor locations to manage. And I just love that interaction. I loved going in. And so it was kind of, I was famous because hell, I'd been taking inventory, in a warehouse since I was 10 years old. And back in
Yep.
those days, they still took physical inventory counts. And so I'd volunteer just to hang around people, and I'd go to the little town and go into their place, and we'd have coffee and beer afterwards and do all this. And I decided that I wanted to be in that business. And I asked Jim Hoke, who is now retired out of this business, who is a friend of mine and an owner of one of my
Mhm.
distributors, if he would run interference, because if Allen Bradley found out I was looking for a distributor, then I'd have my
Yeah,
career would flash before my eyes and I'd be
sure.
fired on the spot. And I couldn't really do that. So he looked around and looked around, and we had a couple of places that I went and took vacation days. And it just didn't work because this was in a time when the value of distributors was really starting to accelerate. And I just, in spite of saving like a fiend, I just never really had enough money. After a couple of years of that, I was invited to join in Jim's company, and when I joined on, we had 17 employees. I can't
Yeah.
remember 35 employees, excuse me. And we did $17 million worth of business. 14 years later, we were well above 160 million. And we sold to the employees in 2005. And that was my trip until 2005 when I, on a whim, decided, boy, these consultants, they really have a lot of fun. They don't do anything. They get up at about 11 and go to lunch at 11:15, come
Man, you're
back.
telling our secrets here. Hold
Oh,
on a
oh, I'm
second.
sorry. Yeah.
You're doing
Anybody
it.
out there that believes that, I've
Yeah.
got a bridge to sell in Manhattan, so that's how I got into this. I've
Yeah,
always been a nut about it because I can tell you that I love to travel and go to Mexico. My brother is married into a Mexican family, and so we've been going down there since 1980. And I can't remember a single time I've been down there that I didn't spend at least a little bit of time going to visit one of those local distributors down there just to
sure.
see the difference between how things happen there versus here. And it was really eye opening in many ways.
Interesting. Yeah, I have kind of become friends with the director of Hardy Mexico, the HVAC.
Yeah, girl.
And yeah. And, it's kind of funny. He'll explain to me a little bit about the subtle differences. And I'd love to go down one of these days. One of these days, I'm going to get down there and I'm going to check it out.
Hey, there's some really unique things. For instance, and all along the coastline of Mexico, which is where I kind of go on vacations and then wander, take a day and visit, some of the wholesalers there. It's not uncommon to go into warehouses where all the shelves are made out of concrete, which is really bizarre. You look at these elaborate concrete structures that are holding stuff. And one day, I mean, I've been scratching and the guy goes, well, first of all, they're pretty cheap. Secondly, they don't rust. And and I go, oh,
Yeah.
okay. But in the in between, it was just like such a different environment.
I'd love to go see that. I think that would be fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I had the opportunity to spend some time with a distributor down in Nicaragua. Although, he operated pretty similar to some of the things that we do in the States here, but there were definitely some subtle differences. The guys, with the armed guards outside the doors, those are always fun to see. And
Well, all you have to do to see those is visit some of the old line distributors in the city of Chicago or Newark, New Jersey, and you see armed guards there too. So,
I guess I could take a cheaper plane ticket. So again, with that transition, stepping away, not necessarily jumping into the family business, but getting into the distributor side. And then when it came time to really kind of jump over here to the dark side, where we peddle advice from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at most, Tell me about that transition. What did that, what was that like when you kind of moved over and actually started working with, different vertical markets? Because I think that was kind of the big eye opener for me. It was trying out different vertical markets besides the one I grew up in.
That's a good point. Here would be the things that I would say that I observed. The problems are the same. The issues are the same. And I would tell you that I work, I was going to say almost entirely, but no, I'm going to say I work entirely with what I call knowledge based distributors. These are people who do not sell brown boxes and white boxes and black boxes, and
Yeah.
they can tell you how many they have on the shelf, but can't tell you what's in those boxes. The people that I work with are people that add some value to everything that they sell. And over the course of time, maybe one of the things that really struck me when I started doing this is back in 2007, I was writing a book for the National Association of Wholesalers on distributor specialists. And they said, Frank,
Yeah.
there's no doubt in our minds that you can talk about the electrical industry. There's no doubt in our minds you can talk about the automation industry. There's no doubt in our minds that you can talk about the fluid power and power transmission industry. But you have to understand that we serve all, I think at that time, 364
Yeah.
different lines of trade,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
which had me kind of like, holy holy criminy, I had no idea that are there really that many? And then I thought, no, there really are that many.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so anyway, they challenged me and said, we're going to hook you up with some other associations, and we want you to talk with other distributors. And
Yeah.
one of the things that, coming from the world of automation and electrical, where you can go, okay, this is kind of computerized and this is highly technical. Who else, why else would you use these specialists and HVAC and refrigeration? I mean, that's pretty darn technical. I got a call from a company in Hawaii, and they were in the food industry.
Hmm.
And this was the most amazing thing in the world. They described their issue in the food industry where I could have scratched food off, and they were selling into restaurants primarily. They specialized in selling to independent restaurants as opposed to chains. When they talked to me, I could scratch food and insert light bulbs, or could insert whole home air purifiers, and talking about what their specialists did. And that was an epiphany for me that they were providing this expertise. What they did was, which is similar to what a lot of distributors do, they find a customer, and that customer has great deal of expertise in their own domain, and really knows how things are going. We find customers like that work with programmable controllers, or work with whole home cleaning systems or heating, or you name it, and we hire them to be specialists to help other people better apply the product. These guys hired executive chefs,
Specialists.
and the chefs went out and solved problems at restaurants. And it's always amazing how
Mhm.
one thing begets another, and begots, or whatever the term they use. I was trying to turn biblical on you there, but I blew it. Um, but they hired these chefs because the lifetime expectancy of an executive chef in an independent restaurant in Hawaii was measured like 18 months.
Hmm.
So they're going 18 months, and then the buying influence moves, and there's a new one. And so we have to start over again. And they use their team of executive chefs as product specialists to endear themselves to the owner and to create a contact with the owner that over the course of the previous 20 years or so, their salespeople could never really do, because they didn't speak the same language as the owner. And these executive chefs understood the financial side of things, and plus had skills to do things like, we're going to help you design a signature drink, because in Hawaii, a signature drink and a signature dessert can make the difference between how good a restaurant is. Now, I'm talking all about Hawaii like I just got off the boat from there yesterday. Um, this is the truth be known. I grew up in Galveston, Texas. That's as close to Hawaii as I ever got. It's an island, and Hawaii's an island. But I thought it was really interesting.
Absolutely. No, I think it's fascinating when you get into some of these vertical markets that you go, what am I going to tell these people? That's the goofy part is, I remember years ago, I got hired to speak at the American Nursery and Landscape Association meeting. And I'm thinking, hey man, I'm a construction supply guy. I'm a widget guy. What am I going to tell the people that have things that die and turn brown and fall over? What am I going to tell them? And it was fascinating how they actually took my content and interpreted it the way they needed it. And it was fantastic. I mean, and I've actually spent a lot of time in that industry now, but that wasn't what I thought I would ever run across. And so it's been a neat journey.
Yeah, it's strange because no customer ever wants to be told, "Oh, your problems are just like everybody else's."
Right. Right.
And they never are exactly the same. But most of the time they're pretty darn close. And I call it transferable knowledge. We have this knowledge that we see, and this would be, how did I get into this business? Why did I get into this business? Because I had seen the inside of 17 different wholesalers when I went to work for, I'll just throw it out there, Van Meter in Iowa. When I went to work for them, I'd seen the inside of 17 different wholesalers. Because of my involvement with AHTD and my involvement with NAD and making friends in these industries, which I'm gonna stop right now and say this. If you're a distributor out there and you are not going to those meetings and becoming actively engaged in them and serving on committees and really getting to know other people, you need to, because there's nobody on the planet who has the same life as you do besides those people. The guy down the street that sells shoes, the banker, your friend, the lawyer, they have no idea what you do. Their wives have no idea what your wife goes through. But if you are in the wholesale distribution business and you go to one of those meetings, you guys have a lot in common. But anyway, okay, I'm going to throw that out there.
Sure.
Back to being on track. Because of those involvements, I made friends all over the country. And it's not just friends. There were friends that owned the business or were VPs of sales or VP of operations or something. And so when you do this, one of the things, you come to town, you go, "Hey, gee whiz, let's hang out sometime tonight." And they go, "Yeah, let's go." And the first thing they always do is they say, "Frank, let's go play golf." And I go, "Oh, I don't play golf." I'll never be a success in life because I hate golf. But then after I get through that, they go, "Well, okay, well, what would you like to do?" I said, "Well, first thing, I'd like to come and see your business." And knowing one wholesale distributor versus seeing 100 wholesale distributors, that's where you start in this part of the business. That's where you start building your knowledge set.
Yeah.
Because I think that I have done deep dives since I started this in 150, where I looked at their finances, I looked at their problems in super deluxe detail. And you start seeing trends and you start seeing things that did work and didn't work. And, and I don't cross pollinate. I don't steal from one person to the other, but it all goes up in your head and thrash it around. And I think if we were giving away trade secrets, that's the trade secret that I think that's the difference. And boy, if there was ever a time for people to network and hang out with people and get to know them better, that would be just another reason to go back to what I said about distributor associations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a fondness for distributor associations as well. And people hear me talk about it quite a bit on the podcast, that I remember, one of my good friends that was on the show a while back, he referred to those who would hang out in the fringes as bleacher creatures. And it's like, come on, let's get in the game.
Yes.
So,
Even though I speak at these, and I know you speak at these,
yeah.
and we are just absolutely great. We're tremendously entertaining. That the time that people spend in that 90 minutes of us talking is a life-changing experience.
Yep.
That's not the real value.
No.
The real value is working side by side with someone, because that's how you
Yeah.
get to know.
Yep, absolutely. And as you said before, there the problems that you run into, if you have cultivated these relationships, somebody's going to have a solution out there. And it's good to build that network of friends that can help you through those situations. I mean, it's something that you and I just can't always do. We'd love to get paid to do that, but we can't always do that.
Hey, well, pay us to introduce you to the right person.
There
Now
you
that's
go. That's a,
and if nothing else,
huh,
this is what I noticed in my career. I won't say that I was overtly trained to do this, but I think that anyone who's been around the block in the working for a manufacturer does get a certain amount of this. Oh, you're having a problem with that? Well, that's the first time I've ever heard that. You're the only distributor who has ever said that our deliveries are wrong, and then we ship it. It comes in on 100 different pallets instead of on one big pallet. You're the only one in the plant. It is. I think that some manufacturers fear us getting together and talking about that, because you go, wait a minute. You said I was the only one on the planet. Well, what about Joe over in Toledo? And
I'm not as special anymore. What do you mean? Frank, even we look at all these different vertical markets, and we kind of bounce around and we see these different challenges, and really kind of what comes down to what the heart of a distributor is really providing services, providing add value. Just as you said, it's not just the white box or the brown box or whatnot on the shelf, it's what's inside and how it applies to that customer base. But I think sometimes that in the name of customer service, that distributors tend to give away a lot. They tend to devalue. They don't value what they're bringing to the table. And I know this is something you've spoken about a lot and you actually wrote about. So there's your tee up.
All right. Hey, I like that. First of all, I tell everybody who doesn't know me that it's a book, and everybody that does know me, and it clearly says this on the title, it's a manifesto, because
Okay.
because every nut job in America has their very own manifesto, and I guess there are some. To put a man on the moon was a manifesto, and Thomas Jefferson, all men were created equal, was a manifesto of sorts. But it's not a how-to; it's a why you got to do it. I will spend just a second and show my age. When I started selling, it was features and benefits. Here's the feature, here's the benefit, and salespeople were trained to rattle those things off, and you did all this stuff. And that was in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. Sometime about 1994 or 1984, excuse me, a gentleman down in St. Louis wrote a book called Value Added Selling.
Oh, Tom. Yeah.
Tom Riley,
I
yes,
know Tom
indeed.
real well. I know his
Uh,
son real well too.
I
Yeah.
do too. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was having one of those white-haired moments where I was going to go, O'Reilly's. No, that's the auto parts place. But
Yeah.
but I remember as a young salesperson, and I'd like to say my hair was dark back then, but it turned white when I was 24, so it was white already. I went into one of my distributors' offices, and they had seen Tom talk, and they had bought a copy of his book, and they were talking about this, and that book changed the way people think. Tom deserves lots and lots of credit for going, okay, prior to that, here's what distributors did. We bought tickets to the local football game and took you to the game if you were a good enough customer. I'd like to say we played golf, but I didn't. But if you played golf, you brought donuts, you knew all the local gossip, you had jokes, a string of them that you could talk, that none of which could be repeated today. That's what a salesperson did. And a really good salesperson had a collection of cool sport coats and shiny shoes. That was pre 1984. We started in this value add thing, and the whole idea behind value add, just in case there's like one person that just transferred from Mars to Earth and they missed that. The whole purpose of this is to say we're not selling products only. We're going to open the box for you. We're going to we're going to deliver it to the right location. If you're a contractor, we're going to do all kinds of extra services, and distributors as a group are really good at embracing new ideas. That's the reason why we still exist after 150 years as a business model. We saw this and we said, okay, the small guys got to do something to differentiate themselves from the big guys, because the acquisitions were just starting up back in the 80s. And so they said, okay, we're going to give this away with our product. The beginning of knowledge-based products probably started sometime after that, because we started going, okay, we've done all these logistics things for you. We've made your billing easier. We've done everything except open the box and take it out and hand it to you. And so what else can we do? Okay, we're going to provide technical support. For people that are dealing in the manufacturing world, about the time that book came out, all the manufacturers were going through right sizing, re-engineering your company. If you look at things, and I truly do believe that recessions and economic storms accelerate change. All of this was going on anyway. And then there was a recession that happened, and the companies just got rid of, and I'll give you a great example. One of my best customers back in 1984 was a manufacturing facility that had 65 people on staff who were all bore the title of plant engineer. I went to a retirement party about 8 years ago for one of my friends who had made it, and he was one of the supervisors of that group. I went into their office. I went through the factory. I went to the place where their office was, and it was completely empty. There were parts stacked on desks and piles of paperwork and all. And I go, geez, Don, where's all the people? And I go, well, we just don't have plant engineers anymore. 65 to 5.
Wow.
And you know what? At the same time, the productivity of that plant is up somewhere in the neighborhood of, without giving away, the vehicles that come out are painted green, and they're making like 2 times more of them in the same facility. So somebody's doing the work. And the answer to who is doing the work is, it used to be that people came there and they said, well, we're having problems with this motor, and we got together and we want to get a little different motor, maybe something with bigger, better seals or whatever. And the distributor said, okay, well, let's open our catalog and we'll get to that. And everybody, it was a group decision. Nowadays, it's kind of a deal of, okay, we've got a problem, solve it. And the person who is solving that problem is a pretty expensive person, because we've got 2 or 3 things going on. We've got a demographic shift. It doesn't matter if you're talking about construction or you're talking about industrial, or maybe even my friends in Hawaii with executive chefs. We've got these people that are sadly younger than me who are retiring at a rate of 10,000 a day. And so they're taking what they know about how business runs and how the plant keeps going and how you solve a problem on a construction site. They're taking that with them and getting on their Harley Davidson and driving off into the sunset. And so who provides the filler of that? It's us. And so the number of people that we talk to who are salespeople. When I started, a sales guy was somebody that was pretty personable and semi-smart and could take people to ball games maybe. And now they're engineers or engineer technician or engineer equivalents in terms of experience.
Right.
Guess what? The thing that, if we factored in the inflation against salaries of engineers, we'll just pick on engineers today. If we factored in the salaries of engineers from 1976 when I graduated, see how old I am? If we factored the cost from 1976 to today, an engineer out of school would make about $43,000. They're not. They're making 65. So we've got a $65,000 a year person coming out of college, coming to work for one of our distributor clients who doesn't know anything except that he's got the degree and things like that. And if a person has been doing it for a while, they've got even more skills. And so we got here's the demographics. The customers need more support. We're providing that support. That support costs more. Okay. One trend that's putting a squeeze on distributors. Here's another squeeze. Everything is programmable. Even some of my friends at Rainbird, they've got lawn sprinkling equipment that's computerized and Wi-Fi enabled. Okay, programmable. Somebody has to know how to make that work. So you got that. And the other part is, and this is something that I just was researching a while back, was the things we sell last longer. There's a reason why my parents' business isn't going anymore. Back in the old days, a set of tires lasted 7,000 miles. You had to put spark plugs in your car every 5,000 miles. You had to set the points and condensers on the car every 2,000 miles. I would challenge a lot of people to say, do you even know where the spark plug wires are on your car? Because cars go for 200,000 miles and they never change any of that. The same thing's happening with some of the equipment that we sell, using AC drives as an example, because that's a product that's in electrical and automation and in HVAC. Those are coming out now with 3 and 4 year warranties. Used to be 12 months, period, end of story. So there's a reason why they're doing it, is it's lasting longer. So we got more expensive people, we've got more complex products, we've got products that last longer, and we got a squeeze on the margins. How in the world can we continue this trek where we follow Tom's advice and provide more value add, more value add, more value add, more value add for free? And salespeople and sales, so that this includes women, but I'm going to use a term, have gotten real macho about it. The competitor, they'll take it out of the box and put it in place for you. Well, we'll tighten up the bolts too. They'll do that. Well, I'll do that. Plus, I'll come and wash your car on Saturday. We have that where salespeople are using this. We're going to throw more and more and more value behind. So and I talked about the distributors having specialists. A lot of the people that provide this really detailed technical support are specialists.
Right.
And I had a meeting with a group of people from a large wholesaler on the East Coast 2 years ago. And they challenged me. They said, we know that you're a different sort of guy. We want to have you come in and talk to our people in a different way. Okay, well, I don't know. I don't know Spanish very well, but I could do sign language a little bit, but it would be boring. And so we had this 2-hour presentation that was nothing but questions. I asked a question and said, "Okay, tell me what you think." I asked a question, "Tell me what you think." I think we had 50 questions. We got down to the technical resources that they had. And I said, these technical resources, do you know how much they cost? Well, one person raised their hand and had a pretty good idea what they cost. I said, okay, so this technical resource cost you, roughly speaking, with all of the equipment and stuff that you provide them and all the goodies like that, probably cost you in the neighborhood of $700 or $800 a day. Yep, that's a good. I go, who decides who gets to give that $700 or $800 away? And this is a point that came back that I'm going to throw this out to every distributor that's listening, and everyone else for that matter. $700 or $800, and I said, okay, who controls that? And they go, nobody. The salespeople get to decide who they give it to. Do they give it to the wrong people? Yeah, often they give it to the wrong people. And then someone said, we spend more time and effort controlling who gets one of our $40 jackets than we do who gets $1,000 worth of free technical support,
Right.
because we're value add people. And here's my message to distributors: unless you get a handle on that, you're going to be a former really popular but out of business distributor. End of story.
Yeah. Yeah.
You probably wish you hadn't asked me after that, but that's a
No, I think you make a ton of sense there. It's that there is this perception that we just kind of give them the whole shopping cart. We give them the whole basket of goodies, regardless often of whether they earned it or not. That
yes.
customer earned it or not. That's the thing. And I've always challenged that notion of all customers are created equal. I don't believe that. And because they don't behave equally,
Hey,
I mean,
if you read some of my stuff, Jason, you and I are on the same wavelength.
well,
I have put this in articles. Thomas Jefferson said all men are created equal. Thomas Jefferson was a bad businessman, because if we're talking about business, they're not.
no, you're absolutely right, Frank. I mean, that's it. And that's a harsh reality sometimes. I think we often give, especially someone on the inside who's receiving these calls, we give them this message that treat everybody the same, but then we actually know that they're not equal. And that's a really tough mixed message. I think this is something that I find can be very confusing to those who understand the concept that people are not that customers are not actually the same, but they've been told differently and they've been told to act differently than that.
We have never, as an industry, except for a very, very few highly processized, forward-thinking distributor, to say, we're going to segment our customers and say, here's what the gold customers get. Here's what the silver customers get. Here's what the bronze customers get. And if you're a bronze customer and you want one of our specialists or one of our technical people to come and spend a half a day with you, we'd be delighted to make that happen. But they don't generate enough margin to pay for it, so they're going to have to write us a check.
Yeah. That is an uncomfortable conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the barrier is right there. That I think the barrier really honestly to charging for this expertise that we, as distributors they're paying for, the barrier is a desire not to rock the boat, a desire not to hit conflict. I could be more direct, but I'm not going to. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. This is two things that are important. A good customer service person, a good salesperson, never says no. They always say, yes, we can do that. The only thing is, in a good company, the point that should be added is, yes, we can do that, but it will cost you.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely correct. We can do that. And the assumption may be for free, but that isn't the case. We got to stop doing that. Yeah.
There is a value. I went around after writing the manifesto book, which is available on Amazon, boys and girls, in case you're wondering what to get daddy for Christmas.
We'll get a little link to that in the show notes, my friend.
The point of all of this is we cannot continue. This is a business model, and the business model, it has to respond to what's going on in the real world, and we cannot let a customer buy from a person online who provides no service whatsoever, who cannot help the customer, and then call us for technical advice. Because remember the days when there were camera stores?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
and this is one of the things that put camera stores out of business. People would go in there and they'd spend half a day talking to the guy at the camera store, and he'd show them all the different doodahs and everything that went with it. And they'd go, well, I got to think about this. And then they would, back in those days, I think it was catalogs. They'd go to a catalog and they'd go, oh, here's exactly the camera. I learned all this stuff from that local guy, and now I'm going to buy it from Joe's Camera World Headquarters in New York City.
Yep.
And we've got that same thing going on right now if we don't fix it. If we don't start saying, we got to do something about this.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And salespeople, I mean, it's going to require a different level of training and a different level of understanding how to deliver that message, because that's something that is not innate. That's not something that you come to the table with when you are in a sales position. So I'm assuming this is something that you speak about and you educate about, how to work with salespeople about this.
Yeah, we do. The problem about pushback from salespeople is real. I've said, and people have observed, if our salespeople were half as persuasive in talking to their customers as they are talking to their boss about why charging for services won't work, we'd all be rich.
Yeah.
And I believe that it's about discipline. It's about saying, what does this customer deserve? It's about telling the salesperson that this is an expensive resource. I cannot allow that resource to be wasted. It's about making the salesperson aware of some of the costs. And it's also about saying, okay, we're going to do this in a way that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Our very best customer who buys millions of dollars worth of stuff from us and who doesn't squabble about the price should probably never pay for service. But if you look at what our friend Dr. Al says from Profit Trends,
Profit planning group. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Al
Al
Bates.
Bates.
Al
Yeah.
Bates.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
gosh
Al.
darn it.
Yeah.
I'm not having a good thing with names today. So, Al, if you hear this, forgive me because I have your picture here on my wall and I think of you often. Al Bates had what he called the whale chart that showed this is the profitability of distributors by customers.
Mm-hmm.
And you looked at this whale chart and it's like the top 20% or 30% of your customers produce 150% of your profits. And you go, holy cow, how can that be? How can somebody produce 150% of our profits? Who's stealing that money? And here's the answer. All of those little customers, all of those people who only use you for a few things, all of those people who call you and demand more service than their profits generate, your best customers are subsidizing your worst customers and putting you in a place where you are not able to service the best ones because you're wasting time on and wasting effort. And that goes back to the all people are created equal thing. We have to start saying, no, they're not. And here's these levels of equalcy. And I'll end it with one thing. One of the deals that we first discovered this on is training. Distributors do training courses that are incredible.
Yeah.
And I encourage you. Training is the new marketing for distributors,
Mm-hmm.
especially with this baby boomers going off into the sunset. There's a need for training. And a lot of them still do that training for free.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
one of my clients, I said, you need to start charging something for the training, just something. We talked about it and settled on $95. Okay. And things were looking very good until a couple of salespeople came in and rebelled and they said, well, gee whiz, we've got customers that it just doesn't make sense to charge them $95. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you some free vouchers. You can give these to whoever you want to come to our free training. You're going to be in a position of deciding who's free and who pays. Everything was cool. At the end of the year, they had a tremendous number of people come into training. They had some no-shows, which always, you sign up 30 people and 28 show up, or you sign up 30
Sure.
people and 25 show up.
Yep.
Of the no-shows, all but one of them were free voucher people.
Yep.
Which kind of indicates to me, if you don't pay for it, it's not worth anything. If it's not worth anything, it's not worth anything. So why are you giving somebody something that they don't think is worth anything? I mean, because this wasn't like, okay, 4 people didn't show and one of them was a paid person. It was like 30 people didn't show and one of them was a paid person and everybody else was a free voucher. Go figure. Here's another side benefit. This same company was doing some things where they had training units. You had 2 people would work on a training unit and they tried to put two customers that didn't know each other together. So it built camaraderie and all that stuff. And they had to limit the number of people. I want to say that they could do 24 for this
Mhm.
one course. So there were 12 training units. But they always had, before they started charging, they would have like 35 people signed up. And I'm going, holy cow, you got 35 people. What's going to happen? Well, that's okay. They're going to drop out. They had to sign up 35 to get 24.
I was going to say 15.
And they were doing all the calling ahead of time and all that stuff too. And, reminders. And then people just, nice day, springtime. Oh, not going.
Yeah, this is exactly, I'll tell you, Frank, it's exactly why I don't do free webinars. And I've been told, numerous times, oh, yeah, do that for marketing. No, 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 because nobody will show up. I'll go through the effort and no, I'm not going to do that. And it's not for the money collected. It's more, I want people to show up. And if they got skin in the game, they're going to show up.
I break the rule on that because that's how I normally do things. But I have been, this was one of those things that I started thinking one day. Actually, I had a long drive. I was driving from St. Louis back to Davenport, Iowa. It's about a 4.5 hour drive. And being on a highway is the best time for thinking. And I'm going along, and I thought, I want to leave a legacy. This is an industry that has served me well, that I love, that I do lots and lots of things just because, not because of anything, except I just am genuinely intellectually excited by it.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, the process for distributors hiring new salespeople, for lack of a better word, sucks.
Yeah.
I would say that the only difference between hiring a new person back in 1980 versus 2020, except for the COVID part, the only difference is back in those days, they said, okay, Sonny boy, here's your desk, here's your keys to your company car, and your customers are in this little book right here that we're giving you, and everything's neatly handwritten. So the only difference is the computerization and the fact that we have cell phones.
And you have to go through 5 interviews. But besides that, it's all about the same.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So, the 5 interview part. Yes, HR has to sign off on it
Drives me crazy. Drives me
before you
absolutely crazy.
before you hire somebody. So anyway, I've run into young people that are in this business and talk to them, and I, in some ways, I feel sorry for them. In other ways, I feel like, okay, this is a good person. I don't want them to get off on a bad foot. And so at that point in time, I said, I'm going to write a book, and it probably be one of my last books. I don't know, maybe before I write another manifesto that's on some nutcase thing, that
It's going to put you on the FBI watch list.
yeah, that this could be like the pre-60s Schwinn bicycle conspiracy manifesto. But the so I said, I want to understand what's going on with these people. I want to understand with it better. And besides that, I want to hang out with young people. So I put the word out, on my blog and on different places that, if you've got somebody that's been in the sales business for under 2 years, have them call me. I basically do it for free. It's like the Thursday my lunch hour, and then Friday from the afternoon or early mid morning on of talking with these people. And cool people, I might say too. I'm talking about people that teach me as well as the other way around. It's really rewarding. And I'm surprised, we talked about how problems exist and they're really the same problem as other people. The problems that these young folks have is so much more complex than the problems that I had at age 24. The issues with so many different ways to communicate with people, so many different barriers to getting in and talking to the right person, and absolutely no training, as well as some definite generational issues. And here's one of the main points that I've learned from all this. And it's a small point, but it's a big one. These guys want to text. Why do they want to text? Because in some ways, they are very, very concerned about productivity. They go, why should I call someone 3:00 in the afternoon to confirm an 8:00 appointment and have the risk of having a conversation with them that lasts 15 minutes when I could send them a text saying, see you tomorrow at 8:30. I wondered, and quite frankly, I wondered why they were sending me all these texts, because hell, I'm an old guy. Why are you sending me these texts? I got enough things to check the way it is. But that was a major learning point for me. And this probably is ego driven. Maybe it's stupidity. Maybe it's like the baby boomer thing, is I do this for free. But if I ask someone and say, okay, what are you going to be prepared to talk about next week? And I don't like give them homework or something, but I say, I want you to be prepared for us to have a conversation next week. If they call and they haven't done it, it's like one strike. If we set an appointment and the appointment is for 5:00 Central Time on Friday, and they're on Central Time and they're calling me too, that's a point in their favor. Especially in the days before COVID, because young people, they want to go out and have fun on Fridays. To me, Friday's just another day, but to them, it's the beginning of the weekend. Anyway, I could talk about this for another 2 hours, but I think that by now, many of you, the people that are on this are probably driving down the interstate, listening to this on their radio and going, oh shoot, I was off the side of the road. I better wake up and have another cup of coffee. But
it's funny. Well, Frank, I mean, honestly, my brother admitted to me that he listens to me at 1.5 speed. So he blazes through, so I sound a little funny when he does that.
Hey,
so.
That's something that I do too. Him listening to me, he might want to kick it up to double speed.
He might want to do that. No, I think it's, it is really something that when I got into this business, and I'm assuming that you were in the same side, is that I got in because I like to help people. And I like to see these challenges and say, okay, I think I can help make your life a little bit easier. And a lot of this mentoring that you're doing with these salespeople is really, it's an extension of that. I mean, it's rewarding. It's enjoyable. You learn some stuff, you get to interact with some people of a different generation. I mean, I can see so many benefits there.
It is. And they give me good references of movies to watch too, and good microbreweries to visit across the country.
Sure. It's always a way to get a map right there.
Yep.
Well, all right, my friend. Well, hey, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been an absolute pleasure, rolling through some of this stuff and getting your thoughts on this. And, if people want to reach out to you, where would they find you?
If you just do a Google search, you'll find me. I have a blog called The Distributor Channel. Just type in The Distributor Channel and Google will take you straight to my smiling face, and you'll look and go, that's either Santa's tall, slightly fat younger brother or Colonel Sanders in the picture. But or you can reach me at Frank, because we're all on first name basis around here, at riverheightsconsulting.com. Or
Frank,
call. We do take phone calls too.
Operators are standing by.
I think a few people are still using the phones. Smoke signals if you're just in Omaha and you want to send a quick message.
Okay. I will definitely link all of these ways to find, to locate Frank in the show notes, and we'll make sure people get over to get an opportunity to chat with you. So.
Hey, that would be a wonderful thing. I'd love to talk shop.
Well, hey, again, Frank, thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Jason.
You bet. Take care. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider hitting that subscribe button. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area on your podcast application or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by Andrea Klunder and Edwin Ruiz at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.